The Kenai Peninsula Borough is being sued over its invocation policy. It's been a long, complicated process to get here, so let's go back to where it all started. In March 2016, some people complained that the Borough Assembly's nearly 40-year-old tradition of opening meetings with prayer, typically Christian, made them uncomfortable. In response, then Assembly President Blaine Gilman added a line in his opening that no one had to participate. A few months later, in May, Gilman submitted an ordinance to remove the invocation. A lot of debate on both sides dragged the discussion late into the night, and ultimately the ordinance died before introduction, and the Assembly decided to just make the process more open to people of all religions, as it had technically always been. In August, Kasilof resident Iris Fontana opened the Assembly meeting's invocation. A member of the Satanic Temple, she read a prayer with some controversial references. The meeting itself was relatively calm. It was a few days later when the public outcry exploded all over social media, and the national media ran a story that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly had opened with a satanic prayer. A local Catholic group gathered to pray outside the borough building, and a secular group counter-protested what the surface was about abortion, but was really about the invocation. At the next meeting, 3 new pieces of legislation came up. One to eliminate the invocation, one to turn it into a moment of silence, and another to set a policy on who could give it. The first 2 failed to pass introduction, and after some work, the third became the policy that's in place today, requiring anyone who wants to give the invocation to be a member of a group with an established presence on the Kenai Peninsula Borough that meets regularly for the primary purpose of sharing a religious perspective, or a chaplain serving fire departments, law enforcement agencies, hospitals, or other similar organizations. A little over a week after the Assembly passed the policy in October, the American Civil Liberties Union of Alaska sent a letter threatening to sue, calling the policy unconstitutional. Assembly members tried several amendments, and in November, then Assembly member Gary Knopp pushed through an amendment to remove the invocation policy. But at the next meeting, when member Willie Dunn was absent, the Assembly voted to reconsider the amendment and reinstated the policy. In December, the ACLU sued. The borough administration contracted with the Alliance Defending Freedom, a Christian nonprofit providing pro bono legal representation, to defend the borough. The case moved to the federal court quickly, but when the ACLU motioned to amend the case and add another plaintiff, a Jewish woman from Homer, the case moved back to state court. In February, Dunn submitted an ordinance to remove the invocation entirely again, which would stop the lawsuit in its tracks. It narrowly passed introduction, and by this time, 3 members had resigned and been replaced by the appointment process. Before the meeting, Dunn wanted to publish an opinion article in newspapers explaining his logic on the ordinance, but there was a challenge because of a clause in the contract with the ADF. Dunn sued, saying he was being unfairly restrained from freedom of speech. The borough let Dunn go through with the publishing. However, the ordinance failed anyway. Dunn immediately said he planned to submit a resolution amending the policy again to make it more open at the next meeting. That ordinance failed as well. So the borough is still fighting the lawsuit. The invocation could go on if the policy is changed and the ACLU drops the suit, or if the court could find in favor of the borough. The first status hearing is scheduled to take place in Anchorage on April 19th. The borough's people have been divided on the issue all along. If the Assembly changes nothing, it'll be up to the court to decide the future of the borough's tradition.